Humans became trapped in ignorance by a false god, Yaldabaoth. Wisdom and the Barbello sent a heavenly spirit to awaken them. Yaldabaoth clouded human minds, binding them to false destiny. The divine spark within humanity remained hidden and scattered. Seth's descendants are seen as keepers of the divine spark. They are referred to as the immovable race by the secret book. The Apostle John asked if all souls will be saved by light. The Savior replies that salvation is difficult to explain. Two great forces govern human living, according to the Savior. One force belongs to the counterfeit spirit, spreading deceit. The other force is truth, sent from the spiritual realm above. Truth illuminates human minds, freeing them from Yaldabaoth. The Savior teaches that awakening begins in recognizing falsehoods. Humans must detach from earthly bonds tying them to the counterfeit. Wisdom, the Divine Mother, calls her children to remember her. The immovable race is not bound by physical lineage, says the Savior. Instead, it is defined by those who awaken to divine gnosis. Those seeking salvation must open their hearts to the spirit above. He speaks of an inner battle between divine power and the counterfeit. Every soul has the potential to reject false rulers and rise higher. The Savior says love and wisdom can lead human beings to salvation. Light and truth must root out darkness within one's soul. The saved will return to the uncontaminated light, eternally united. Yaldabaoth's grip weakens as more awaken to the spiritual truth. The Savior concludes, humanity must move toward inner liberation. Wisdom remains ever present, guiding those ready to embrace it. All are called, but only the awakened will hear the call. In the end, salvation is the triumph of truth over illusion. The divine spark will reunite with its true origin, the light. The immovable race signifies the awakened, not a specific lineage.
Indeed. Great summary by the great David Brackey. A little combination of my work and a little AI sloppy slop. But welcome everybody to this very special Black Iron Prison Intercept. As always, my name is Neil Connor in his meat sack incarnation. Good to see everybody. It is a special show. Pourquoi? Because I am streaming this all over the place. Usually the Black Iron Intercepts are behind a paywall for members on Patreon and YouTube and AB Prime. You get the full dope. You get to participate in the Q&A and the after hours live studio Q&A and so forth. But for the month of May, I decided to do some free promos like my last Abraxas brief, the 5 lies about Gnosticism, and I'm making this completely open for everybody. So good to see everybody who has joined, or if you're just enjoying on the replay. Of course, other shows will be gated. This show I'm doing because I did a poll in different places and everybody wanted this take, a deep dive into the Demiurge and his Archons, but second place was the Gnosticism of Philip K. Dick. So, barring any Archon shenanigans, that will be the next one. I wanted to put this one actually earlier, but circumstances that kind of slowed things down. Life comes at you fast. So, but here it is before the month is over. So good to see everybody on the different chat rooms, whether you're on one of the private YouTube, the public YouTube, or those of you that might be on the live stream at Patreon. And yes, this is a deep dive into the Demiurge and his Archons. Before I get to that, not much housekeeping, as I say, but I did want to mention something I wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, and that is my gratitude to you. This last month or so has brought some challenges, has different ways, including my spinal stenosis, this horrible virus that just wouldn't go away. Maybe it's the Demiurge punishing me for making fun of people with long COVID. I don't know, but it was brutal. there were some financial setbacks, and there was still even though the Karen neighbor is gone, there's still an issue with our living conditions and how we might be soon. And there's just a lot going on. And of course, you might say you keep it together, but then the death of my dear friend Gordon really shook me up, really broke things down, really came out of anywhere. And I had to do sort of a gut check, or more like a soul check, because it was hard. It was very hard. And, but in a way, I have to have a lot of gratitude, because when you're in pain, when you're sitting there in a state of complete grief, there's certain, there's certain ways you can go. And I chose Sophia to really go inward and really focus on contemplation, meditation, really grabbing into the toolbox, my spiritual toolbox. And I saw amazing things as you're sitting there and you feel you're broken, and you feel the world is broken, and you feel a future no longer makes any sense. Suddenly things open up, and they did. I saw much more of the spiritual world. I saw much more of myself. And it was an incredible reminder to let me know that the spirit world is true, that who we are is just a small part of this very large iceberg of this wondrous metaphysical divine force, and that the spirits and the daemons and the gods are right behind the thin veneer that we think is reality. And I saw that. I kept seeing that. Things kept breaking open, and I saw wondrous things and wondrous voices that told me it's going to be okay, because this is an illusion, and this is for our learning. Or what did Gordon White wisely say? He always said, "We come here to learn, not to be taught." There's a big distinction, and I started learning things. And beyond seeing that, as Jung always wanted to prove, we all have a soul, I saw that there is really a spirit world. And I always knew that, but this time I was experiencing it in fullness and pleromaness, if you would. And I am so grateful to be able to touch into that. And I know each one of you can do that, regardless of where you are in your life. And I understood the power, as much as it sounds hippie-ish, the power of love does matter. The power of kindness does matter, because that's the scaffolding of the higher spiritual worlds, and that's the healing power beyond self-knowledge. As I was being broken open, I saw so much of myself that I hadn't seen. I saw so much sludge and shadow that I had not noticed, because it is really endless, but even if it's part of who you are. But I saw great things that I had done, a lattice of accomplishments, and whatever my ego thinks, most of the time I was part of a sacred duty that I am very proud of. I am extremely proud of, and I am extremely grateful for you. I am so grateful that I get to meet and hang out with people like Vance and Graham, and so many of you that I have met, that have been guests, that we email, that we share stories on social media. And all of you, I'm so grateful for, who have supported this show, who have taught me so much about myself and about Gnosticism. You're amazing. I'm so full of gratitude for what you've done and for this journey, and I can't thank you enough. The only way I can do is try even better to connect with you, but I am truly grateful for all of you, for the journey you've been, for what you've taught me, and for just being part of my self-knowledge in this, as we'll talk about in the presentation, this rescue operation of Sophia. And during this crisis, I am so grateful for those of you who have helped me sort of keep it together in so many ways. Help is always there. If I had a criticism from myself, is I don't ask for enough help. we are here to support each other as we are all lights that make up this beautiful net of awakening. And sometimes we are the ones helping, sometimes we are the ones who need help, but somebody has some sort of information, or even the act of asking for help shows so much heroism to each one of you. And I am grateful for those who have really helped me, including Maja Daou, Jessa Reed, Kevin Can, Gloria, Mauricio, Don. Graham's been great on the phone, Sean, and so forth. I can't thank you enough. And at the same time, it just teaches me that when I need to help others, I will continue to help others, again, whatever the reasons are. So I'm really very gratitude, and I just thought I would mention that. I'm at a big crossroads. I don't know what's in the future. There's a great unknown. The spirits have a plan, but today, while I am here, while I am with you in my meat sack, I have so much gratitude and thank you for being on this journey. I don't know how spreading Gnostic truths has helped. Many of you said it's really made a difference, that we are indeed in Gnostic times, but I just did my role, and that everybody has just as an important role in this world to bring healing and to be part of Sophia's rescue operation. So thank you, and we shall continue hopefully for another day. So I wanted to say that before we get started, and now we will get into the Demiurge and his Archons. This is a topic that can be sliced in a million ways. I could do like 20 presentations because there's so many different iterations of the Demiurge. There's so many traditions, even within the Gnostic rubrics of the Demiurge, of the idea of evil, why there is suffering. And I have covered it in past presentations, like the Gnostic idea of suffering and evil, the Gnostic Book of Enoch. But today I thought we'd get down to basics and get down to the core. And that would have to be the secret book of John, which is considered sort of the text of Gnosticism, where everything else seems to have been sprouted out of. And as always, I am confident I will provide different angles and ideas for you. So without further ado, let me see if we can get this thing going. Usually this is where I mess things up. Oh, I didn't mess things up. All right. If you think it looks good, Vance, go for it, or you can play with it. You're always better with this sort of aesthetic, if you would. I'll just get started with the presentation. Indeed, a deep dive into the Demiurge and his Archons based on the secret book of Juan, as I often like to call it. And again, check out the Gnostic view of evil and suffering, which is full for all members, because it really complements this and takes us a little broader on how the Gnostics came to these ideas and how they expanded even after the classical time. Two gods, the Gnostic distinction. Gnostics distinguish between a supreme transcendent God and a cosmic creator God, the Demiurge. While this distinction had roots in Greek philosophy, what made it uniquely Gnostic was the claim that the creator is not merely cosmic, but demonic. In classic Gnostic myth, the creator God assumes the role of adversary to the true God, making a separate devil figure unnecessary, though, as you will find out, Satan was among the Gnostics even back then and throughout history. Now, the two God distinction is more like a late 90s, early 2000s scholarly take. It's not so much popular. It is when talking about Marcion, because Marcion seems to be really dualistic. There's the transcendent God, completely separate, and then there's the sort of managerial God, and we humans are part of the managerial God. This transcendent God gives us the divine spark. We don't have it. So people often use it with Marcion, but not so much with the Gnostics. Terms like dualism and so forth, they're just a bit problematic. And the term dualism was created by the Orthodox to slam the Gnostics. So and even though, as we know, orthodoxy can be just as dualistic. So we have these two gods, and they are really a reflection of each other. They are a yin and yang, and perhaps even a necessary yin and yang, just as our ego and our shadow are necessary to each other. Now, I mentioned the secret book of Juan, and this is obviously a very important text, though and some consider it the primary Gnostic source, sometimes called the Gnostic Bible because it's got everything. It's got the beginning, the end, so much. It survives in 4 Coptic manuscripts, including 3 Nag Hammadi codices and the Berlin Codex. Bishop Irenaeus summarized an early Greek version around 180 CE. And Karen King always said it's so important because the secret book of John was the first time in history where you got the history of salvation in Christianity. You got the beginning, the middle, and the end. It really wasn't there that much in Christianity, even in Revelation. And it was only later individuals like Augustine and other church fathers who said, yes, the whole idea of Christianity is an epic, not just through the creation and Adam and Eve and history and to the end and all that. So Karen King thinks it's for that reason, it's very influential. What's the context? Well, you've got a revelation from the risen Christ to the apostle John. And what happens is John is distraught. Jesus has just been crucified and he runs. Oh, he's in Jerusalem and he gets approached by this Pharisee called Arimanus. And you wonder, Arimanus, is this some sort of avatar of the Persian Ahriman? Is this the Gnostics is always nodding that one of their influences was Zoroastrianism, perhaps. But Arimanus just makes fun of John, like, you picked the wrong horse, dude. You suck. He's dead, blah, blah, blah. And John cries and leaves Jerusalem, goes to a cave, and then Jesus suddenly shows up. He takes many figures, says, I am this, I am that, I am the mother, I am the child, I am everything. Then appears and so it consoles John. It's like, don't you have any faith, dude? I got this. I got this. And he decides to tell John the history, the true history, not as Moses got it or the priests of Jerusalem, but the true history of what had happened. And for this reason, some scholars think that perhaps this was originally a non-Christian text because Jesus is only in this sort of narrator of the story. He doesn't really appear in any of the other places. And some people said, well, maybe it was a non-Christian text. And then Christians decided they're just going to insert Jesus as like me telling you the story. Anyway, part 1 is this beautiful creation story, the awakening of the alien god and description of the divine realm. It's really beautiful. Again, very almost Eastern, where consciousness comes into awareness and starts recognizing itself and spreading out and creating iterations of itself that it calls the aeons, and the aeons, which are the capacities of the alien god, personhoods and potentials, come out into this beautiful, beautiful divine realm. It's very apophatic because it talks about what we're describing, but we can't. It is beyond comprehension, and there's meditations and everything. Very beautiful, but then, then the plot turns because then you have towards the end of part 1, you got, yes, the fall of Sophia, which we'll get into, and the creation of the Demiurge, Yaldabaoth, or Yaldabaoth, as we call him here. And then you've got part 3, the creator's role in humanity's creation and early history. In other words, we've got the grand saga of Sophia versus the Demiurge and how things end in the world of humans, and definitely rewrites or says that this is the true interpretation of the Hebrew Bible and other places. But some scholars have said perhaps these were 2 books. You had the beautiful creation story, And then from the Sethians, and then you had the Nassenes with their obsession with the Garden of Eden and all that, and the fight, and some other Sethian decided to put it together. I don't know. Interesting theory, but what can we do? We can speculate until one of you guys invents a time machine and we can all go back in time. So the force behind this are the Sethian, the bearers of the divine spark. The Sethians were a prominent Gnostic sect who revered Seth, Adam and Eve's third son. Adam and Eve's third son, sorry about that, as a spiritual ancestor imbued with divine essence. They believe humanity was divided into spiritual and material lineages, with Seth's descendants inheriting a divine spark. They never called themselves Sethians, referring to themselves as either Gnostic or Christian, though many became non-Christian around the 3rd and 4th century. By the time they were attending the universities with Plotinus and so forth, they were pretty much non-Christian. We don't know why. Perhaps there was just too much persecution within the churches, and they just said, we're going somewhere else, and we're going to create some other, or we're going to find some other apostles of light and traditions to embrace for our mystic experiences. What is interesting too about the Sethians, and I should mention too, Noria, who was Seth's other sister, is often also another prominent figure with the Sethians. But again, they didn't call themselves Sethians. I know Seth, and even in a lot of Jewish traditions, there are sects that really revere him because, again, he wasn't Cain and Abel. Let's put it that way. He was a good kid. He was a kid that did everything right. I would say the Sethians too might be the only real secret society, because if you've noticed, or you might not have noticed, there are no Sethian leaders or exemplars. We know about Valentinus, the Apostle John. We know about Basilides and Saint Ignatius and all these, and Paul, obviously. And they wrote letters and people talked about them. But guess what? The Sethians never wrote, they wrote the secret book of John to honor John, but there's no Sethian work that says, I, Maximus Gladiator, am writing this letter or anything like that. So they really were very secret. However, as some have pointed out, some of them did get doxxed by Porphyry, Plotinus's second or right-hand man. He mentions a few of these Sethians, but what he's doing, he's doxing them, and we don't know anything about them except maybe their first name. So interesting that the Sethians were really one of those rare, true secret societies that we just don't know who was their leadership or whatever. So when talking about Yaldabaoth, the Demiurge and his Archons, we always got to bring in Sophia. Sophia, the last divine being to emanate from the highest God, was driven by psychic impulses and wished to bring forth a likeness from herself, without God's consent and without her celestial consort. Her act of hybris, that's just a fancy Greek term for hubris, produced an imperfect, monstrous figure, lion face, serpent body, shining with fire. She cast him away in shame. In scholarly literature, this event is known as the Fall of Sophia. And this has always been a very perplexing but multi-channeled story, if you know what I mean. It has a multiplicity of ways of seeing them. Do we know what? I mean, this text and even many other texts don't tell you exactly why. Did she want to do something for the supreme? She is the wisdom of God, the Aeon, a aspect of him that's independent and personified. Did she want to honor him and did something without the other Aeon? Because all these Aeons are usually in pairs, they're consorts, and that created an imbalance and impurity. Some have said perhaps she is a Lilith figure. She did not want to have carnal relations with her aeon and created other aeons. She wanted to, you might say, satisfy herself or be on top. Perhaps she rebelled in other ways, but again, I have done, if you go to the Virtual Alexandria Academy, I've done the different possibilities that she is part simply of this rebellious ancient goddess trope that you find with Kybele and others. The soul is always seen as female in ancient times, and as Plotinus says, as soon as the soul is aware, she's going to rebel. She's got to go explore. But I would check that out. Again, we could spend a lot of time here, and I love being on the internet because people have different views. Some blame the God above God. How did the Father, the undivided consciousness, the alien God, allow this? Did he have to experience all of this? Perhaps wisdom, being wisdom, had to experience. What did Rudolf Steiner say? Wisdom is crystallized pain. You can be ideal as wisdom, but you got to go through all the experiences to be true wisdom. Some blame Sophia. Why did you have to be, cast away your poor deformed son, hide him in a cloud because you were ashamed that the other aeons might see you? Why could you have been more nurturing, and so forth? So there's a million ways to see it, but I would say that whoever you blame is where you need to lean on and what you need to work on. Whether you blame the God above God, Yaldi Sophia, it's probably part of you that needs to be addressed for your own healing. So, but that's how the problem starts. And yeah, everything really goes south after this, right? Because yes, Yaldabaoth, Sophia's son, some said our brother-in-law, is he came out of her, and nobody knows what Yaldabaoth means. It's a barbarous word, as some have said, a non-Greek word. Some have said that it simply means son of chaos, but we really don't know. And you guys know we call them Yaldi Baldi here, or just Yaldi. Yeah, I don't know, Sophia. Maybe one day you'll tell us why you called him that. But as soon as he was born, he took great power from his mother, her divine spark or power, that engendered astral and planetary gods and angelic powers to control the lower world, the chaos outside of the pleroma, the mind of God. Identified with the creator God of Genesis, he was wholly ignorant of the divine world above, yet arrogantly proclaimed, I am a jealous God. There is no God but me. And some of you may know that's simply a direct quote from Yahweh from Exodus 23:5 and Isaiah 45:5. There are a few other places where Yahweh makes sure, no other gods. I am very jealous in this context. Yaldabaoth has no idea about the spiritual world or even his mother. He's just a child that has been let loose into the chaos, and he steals his mother, maybe nurses from Sophia, and suddenly has unlimited power. And again, he is perhaps he's the shadow side of Sophia, or perhaps he's simply the shadow side of the God above God, of the undivided consciousness, because he does the same thing as the pleroma does. He starts creating, he starts imitating. Our world is a copy of the higher world. So yes, maybe you would find a chipotle in the pleroma if you went up there. I don't know. I don't know. But he is basically sort of an AI. That's one reason Gnosticism is so popular today. Again, I would go to my Black Iron Intercept presentation on the relevance of Gnosticism today, but he just makes copies and copies. He doesn't create a single thing out of his own creativity or invention. He is just shaping things and copying things that are above for him without even knowing who really is up there, and assuming that he is the poor guy. He's the only being in the entire universe. What a mess. Yes, yes. And this universe is our material world. Woohoo. So But no, not all is lost, because as soon as Yaldabaoth took her power, Sophia's rescue operation began. She takes responsibility. Distraught by her monstrous creation, Sophia repented deeply, her profound sorrow forming the cosmic waters within the nascent chaos. In a compassionate attempt to rectify her error, she secretly imbued Yaldabaoth's creation, humankind, with a divine spark of light from the true God. This hidden spark, a fragment of her own divine essence, connected humanity to the transcendent pleroma and offered a path to spiritual awakening. Though this covert rescue operation, through this covert rescue operation, Sophia sought to plant the seed of gnosis within the material realm, providing a means for liberation from the Demiurge's ignorant dominion. Or, as some have said, this is the beginning of God's psychotherapy. Yes, wisdom went wrong. The shadow is out there. I don't know. Maybe, yeah, God went crazy and became us. So this is the beginning of the therapy. This is how we fix things, isn't it? Now, how did this happen? Well, I will simply say that this happened because Yaldabaoth is looking up at the higher realm, again, just copying like AI slop that it is. And it sees the primal man, which in the secret book of John, it's called Adamus. In other traditions, in Persia, is the Gariman, or the Purusha in Hinduism, or the Adam Kadmon, or the Son of Man, but this sort of cosmic ideal prototype of humanity. He sees that and he says, well, I must create this man too. But this man will not move. So Yaldabaoth and his Archons, again, instead of the Aeons, he creates the Archons because they are a copy of the Pleroma. So he creates this man. It doesn't work. And Sophia, who is a trickster, as you will see, she goes and she whispers in his ear, give him your power. And Yaldabaoth says, and he blows power. In the book of Genesis, it has God breathing into Adam. In this one, Yaldabaoth breathes all of the power he stole from Sophia, and suddenly the divine spark, what keeps the universe up, is in Adam. So she tricks him. So now Adam has the divine spark, and he is all powerful. And well, that's the beginning of the end, if you would. Let me read. Yeah. Basically the book gives you two choices: psychic or spiritual. What's the two ways you want to go? Ego mental or the spiritual world? And it's interesting because, at least for this work, the secret book of John, matter doesn't really matter, if you know what I mean. These Sethians don't even give it any attention. In other words, the material world is completely an illusion. It's not even worth addressing. It's all about the mind gone wrong and the spiritual world. And the ego is in the mind, and that's where Yaldabaoth is. And then there's a spiritual world. So this book gives you, or these Sethians give you two ways to go. And as this slide shows, Adam, he was made out of the Demiurge psychic powers, but also we have which gives us the characteristics of the Archons, but we also have the spiritual seed within us. And another interesting one where it changes from the Genesis, as it always has God moving back and forth in the waters. In this book, it's actually Sophia. She's either having an anxiety attack, trying to figure things out, and she moves back and forth in the waters. It's not it's not Yahweh doing whatever his little creation stories. So here we are. This is how Sophia's rescue operation happens. So Yaldabaoth knows that he must keep humanity imprisoned, not allow them to wake up, because they will release the divine spark and then he will lose all his power. It's survival. He needs that loosh, baby. He needs that loosh. And here are the ways that they keep us down. I would mention there is my presentation also behind the paywall, six ways the Archons keep you trapped. I would check that one out, although this one has similarities. But how does he keep Adam down? Number one, imprisonment of the light. Adam's soul body was cast into a physical body of earth, water, fire, and wind. The tomb of matter, as Socrates said. Fate keeps him constrained. Yes, we are tied by these powers. And yeah, we are here in our meat sacks. Number two, excuse me, as I cough with my meat sack, the counterfeit spirit. A demonic anti-mom Numa was created to lead humanity astray and cast the soul into forgetfulness. That's the Wetiko, or the mind virus, that the Archons create to lead us astray, to keep us in a state of amnesia, to give us, make sure that we make all the wrong decisions and are completely attracted to the illusion that is matter and so forth. Very powerful weapon. And those of you, of course, who've studied again with Tico, mind parasites and all that, know how effective they are. And it all comes from Yaldabaoth and his Archons. Number three, attempt to seize the light. The Demiurge cast a trance over Adam to extract the divine power, only partially succeeding, producing Eve. Yes, to the Sethians, the idea of making a woman out of a rib to be his companion was really dumb. It wasn't going to work. It made no sense. In the secret book of John, what happens is Yaldabaoth wants to take back the divine spark. So he goes into Adam and pulls out as much power as he can. But guess what? The divine spark is an avatar of Sophia. So it appears as Eve, one of the avatars of Sophia. She is wisdom and often, or all the time, actually wiser than Adam. So Yaldabaoth knows he can't take that back because, the divine spark will turn into just another avatar of Sophia. So number four, dispersion versus sexual desire. The serpent and the demiurge himself seduced Eve. Yes, in the secret book of John, everything in the Garden of Eden is evil, including the serpent, though other Gnostic sects would have Jesus be either Sophia, would have the serpent be either Jesus or Sophia. So they seduced Eve, spreading the life substance across more and more humans. And this is an important one because sexual assault is so predominant in the secret book of John and other Gnostic texts from the Sethians. And you wonder, why are these algorithmic Archons and the Demiurge so rapey? What's the deal? Well, I've thought about it, and I think one is a social political stance, because when you study ancient history, one of the innovations or weaponizations the Romans had to conquer people was sexual assault, and it's part of their myth, the rape of the Sabine women and so forth. And this was a way one of the many ways the Romans kept a population in a state of trauma. So maybe the Sethians were doing sort of a social political satire. The other thing is disassociation. I'm sure Yaldabaoth knew that the best way to make us forget, to not face the truth, is through disassociation, the fragmenting of our mind in our past. And those of you who have this past of SA know that, yes, disassociation happens. It fragments you. Sexual assault and abuse will break you and will bury your memories and your past deep within you in a muck of pain and scars. So I think that's what the Demiurge decided, even though, again, it's not something that you might say would please him, if you would. And the idea of having more and more children was the Archons thought would spread the divine spark, but it will actually backfire, because all you're doing is creating the potential of having some individual or more individuals wake up, the seed of Seth, as they called them, And eventually this will spread like wildfire as these groups will wake others up. But, of mice and demiurges, as they say. The other trick, number 5, that the demiurge uses is the flood and angelic mixing. The flood attempted to cover humanity with darkness. Fallen angels mixed with human women to corrupt the light in the survivors. And again, I would ask you to go see my presentation on the book of Enoch, where the secret book of John rewrites the book of Enoch. It's actually more logical. It's sort of a part of creating hybrids to keep us under control. It has other functions. And then Noria is also a figure that fights many of these angels in the book of Enoch and so forth. But we get now to the flood. Yeah, the flood is a cosmic warfare. The great deluge is interpreted allegorically. The demiurge sought to cover humanity with darkness, but Noah and fellow spirit bearers were saved in a luminous cloud by Pronoia, providence, an envoy of the true God. Yeah, providence is again one of the avatars of Sophia. And as Chris Knowles has said very wisely, luminous clouds could be, alien craft. That's what some have said, especially when you look at the Mandeans and others. They're not actually clouds, but these crafts that come and save us. When this failed, cosmic angels disguised themselves as husbands to corrupt the saved. Yet the mythical Gnostic ancestress resisted, preserving their spiritual nature. Yes, in the Gnostic view of the book of Enoch, the women don't fall for the angels. They reject them. The angels have to change shapes into husbands or whatever to be able to procreate with these women. And I think the secret book of John is more logical because the idea of this giant worldwide flood that spread everywhere in the Grand Canyon and all these places and drowned kittens and, basically had to start over made no sense. The flood was more like a flood of darkness, a massive memory wipe, like the Men in Black with the neuralizer, except a giant one, to sort of reboot humanity and have them start over. And who knows how many times this has happened and how many times these crafts have come to save us, or at least those of us who don't want to be memory wiped, take the blue pill like Cypher and want to face the hard truth of the future. So we got the grand battle of Seth, humanity, and the light, the divine inheritance. When Adam knew Eve, their son Seth was born possessing the light power. All human generations inherited the spiritual element through him. Every human being possesses the light power, but not everyone develops this potential. Only those who acquire gnosis become perfect and are saved. The superiority of spiritual humanity was a constant nuisance to the Creator God. His every effort to extinguish it ultimately failed. And I think that's it's important to say too. Again, with the Sethians, there is the psychic, and you may say that's our soul, my Miguelness or Vanceness that will continue throughout time. It is mental, and the divine spark eventually is what I possess, but would eventually will grant my Miguelness that eternal, that power through the reincarnations, and eventually that blissful union with the pleroma or that embrace of Sophia. Again, to the Sethians, matter was just inconsequential. That's the stance they took. Other Gnostics definitely took other stances. So you see, it's quite a battle, and it's up to us to continue to reincarnate as the seed of Seth, keep our psychic force to fight this, and also protect and eventually unleash the divine spark back to Sophia through, again, our awakening, ecstasy, joining with wisdom, traveling those higher worlds so we understand how exactly it's going to work here in Sophia's rescue operation. Now, it's why not have a little the Demiurge versus Satan comparison? Uh, uh, in his, well, let me read first and then I'll give you my commentary. In his wickedness and ferocity, the Gnostic creator and ruler of the world surpasses the Satan of apocalyptic Jewish and non Gnostic Christian traditions. Unlike Satan, the Demiurge is responsible for the very structure of fallen existence. The physical body, fate, or Heimarmene, and the counterfeit spirit, making him a far more totalizing force of evil. Yes, the Demiurge is completely in control. Though, you read some of the New Testament, the Gospel of John, Epistle of John, that says the evil one is in control of the world, or the goddess world. I think some early Christians, including the Gnostics, knew who was in charge, and that was the Demiurge. And I think it makes more sense because, Satan, as he started out simply as an adversary, as God's prosecutor, then became the font of evil. But his morality and principles are just so human, so close to late antiquity and Middle Ages, the idea of eternal resentment and always being pissed off and all this yada, yada, yada. Yeah, it had a good run, but when you think about it, it makes no sense. Why doesn't Satan just open the Bible and read the book of Revelation and other places to figure out what's going on, since he's not ignorant like the Demiurge? Who knows? Who knows what's going on? But the Demiurge makes more sense. And I've said in my presentation on the relevance of Gnosticism today, why he makes more sense as an algorithm, an AI, an alien being, so many psychologically as the disaffected, disconnected ego. He just makes more sense. And on a total grand universal scale, he makes more sense because the economics of the universe is food. Everything eats everything. Everything that can colonize you to feed on you will do that, from microbes to gods. The Gnostic Demiurge is simply the biggest one of all. He and his Archons, they need that sweet loosh. They need it trapped in this farm, and they need to eat. And that's just a principle of the universe. All energy must be transferred. We can say it's good, evil, bad, and argue until the cows come home, but that'll just put us deep into our own ranch of cattle, human cattle. But yes, it's all about just food and how to stop being somebody's dinner and going somebody better, getting out of the ranch and into the woods, into the wilderness. And as I mentioned before, Satan was a part of Gnosticism. The Valentinians actually saw Satan as superior to the Demiurge. Why? Because if you read parts of the New Testament, it talks about how even demons read scripture and demons recognize Jesus before humans. So the Valentinians were like, Satan's actually, he's got a good eye for the spirit world. So, and they kind of put him as a good guy. Again, with the Valentinians, there's no good or bad guys. It's just everybody has a role. You have the Demiurge, you've got Satan, other spirits, and so forth. And everybody just has their role in how the creation goes. Later on in the Middle Ages, as time passed, the Cathars and the Bogomils, they simply switched it around. They made Satan the Demiurge. They called him the Rex Mundi, the king of the world. Yeah, next time you watch Titanic, think of that scene. But he was basically, he had the role of the Demiurge, except he did rebel against God. He and his angels ran into matter and decided to shape it, and he decided to create his own kingdom, trapped a divinity, and so forth. And they just made him. They just switched the roles. The mythology. The Cathars were so far away from the classical Gnostics that done perhaps so much censorship that they just no idea about this Yaldabaoth guy, but they knew there was a big bad hombre running the universe, and to them that was Satan. Or maybe because in those days, as a teaching tool, Satan just made more sense. Now, where did the Gnostics come with the idea of their Demiurge or Yaldabaoth. Obviously, as I said in my presentation of evil, of the Gnostic view of evil, there was plenty there when you look at the myths of the Anunnaki, Olympus, uh, Ahriman, so forth, Plato's cave. There's plenty of evidence of ancient times of these celestial cosmic beings trapping us. And obviously the God of the Hebrew Bible was a big one because look at his behavior and look at his attitude. But originally, too, we always have to mention Plato's Demiurge from the Timaeus. He's based on this being. You have the one, you've got the universe, and you've got this supreme being called the Demiurge, Greek for public worker, who shapes the world and calls it good, and everything is fine. And the Gnostics sort of made a caricature of that because that's what Yaldabaoth does, but he shapes this world and doesn't do well. Plato's Demiurge is a well-meaning craftsman shaping the world to reflect perfection, whereas the Gnostic Demiurge is a flawed, ignorant, and malevolent entity whose creation is inherently fallen. Now, I don't know. I did do a short a while ago. I haven't been able to do many shorts or any extras because of all the stuff happening and challenges that I've had, but I did do one based on the scholarship of based on a great book called Did God Care? And I forget the name of the scholar, but and I also did it in my Gnostic Dispatch article, which might be a little late for June because again, all the challenges. But she writes that maybe the Plato's Demiurge wasn't good. You've been fooled because once he shapes the world, he pulls back and he leaves the Olympians, the daemons and spirits. He goes, "All right, Zeus, you're the manager of this universe. Take care of things." And even Plato admits that doing that, well, hasn't gone well. That's one of the causes for suffering and evil in the world because you allow these quote unquote young gods to run things while this benevolent supreme demiurge just goes back towards the world of ideals. So maybe maybe the Gnostics saw that too, and they decided to go with it. Another important one, especially when you look, excuse me, especially when you look at what he looks like. Again, he's a lion head with the body of a serpent. What does that mean? He's probably based on the Egyptian god Canubis, the proto-demiurge. In ancient Egyptian astronomy, Canubis was a powerful 13 decan. Now, decans were a series of stars, 10 stars that came out at night, and they were very reliable. They did not eclipse, they did not move. They were very strong and dependable stars. That's how the Egyptians were able to tell time at night, by just looking at the decans and their movement. And of course, like any ancient people, the decans were considered gods. They had some sort of being attached to it, behind it, or manifesting as it. And in these 36 decans, the ruler of the 13th decan was the god named Canubis. And he had, you got it, he had the lion's head and a serpent's body. And Canubis was seen, was seen to the Egyptian as a god of order. He was seen as a god of, he was seen as a positive god. But the Gnostics made a caricature of him, or perhaps they thought he wasn't that good. Canubis, he embodied health, protection, cosmic order, not to the Gnostics. And in the secret book of John, Yaldabaoth the Demiurge rules the 13th aeon, or the 13th heaven, if you would. So that connects him to Canubis. And in ancient times, obviously 13, at least in very old times, was not considered a unlucky number. So Canubis's appearance, he had a lion's head, symbolized solar strength and divine rulership. Serpent's body represented vitality, protection, and renewal. And obviously, it also means chthonic powers, lunar powers. So he was a total being, both solar and lunar. And the radiant halo made him, was a symbol of illumination and cosmic stability. So this is another stream of the Gnostic Demiurge, and as you can see, he has plenty, probably one god of order, but the Gnostics were like, hey, the buck's got to stop somewhere. Who is the CEO of this universe? Things don't make sense. It's this being. Call him Canubis, call him Yahweh, call him Kronos or Saturn. It doesn't matter. He has caused a mess, and we got to fix these things, and we got to be part of Sophia's rescue operation. So as we can see, we got two threats, one choice. The demiurgical god threatens divine light and humanity in two ways, prompting humans to forget their spiritual nature and live as mere psychics. Remember, yes, there's only mind, there's spirituality, matter don't matter, and actively preventing the divine light from returning home. So you got two choices, Western man. Which will you pick? The psychic path, surrender to cosmic impulses, sharing in the ignorance and wickedness of the demiurge. The spiritual path, devote oneself exclusively to incorruptibility, keeping the spiritual core immune to demonic influence. And this is what Jesus says in the secret book of John. Those human beings will be saved who devote themselves exclusively to incorruptibility, without anger or envy or fear or desire. And as I get to the end, I thought you might want to see this. I think it's an interesting stance. This is what Adamas, when he was created in the pleroma, or he is part of the mind of God, knowing himself an aeon, he tells the undivided unconscious, the alien God, the one, he says, everything has come into being from you. Everything will return to you. Interesting quote at the beginning of creation. So as I'll read, the end of the world is not a physical cataclysm, but a spiritual and psychological reabsorption of all divine power back into the mind of God. The meat sack realm exists only because it is sustained by the stolen light of Sophia. Once this power is fully withdrawn and returned to the higher realms, Yaldabaoth's world will cease to exist. This end is triggered by revelation and gnosis, as humanity uses the faculty of epinoia, or forethought, to recognize that the material world is an illusion with no independent reality. The process is the, quote, psychotherapy for God, a restoration of sanity where the fragmented aspects of the divine mind are healed and reunited. Every soul that follows the roadmap of ascent will eventually be restored to the pleroma, the full and united mind of God. Ultimately, all multiplicity and darkness vanish as reality returns to its original monistic state and the material tomb is permanently removed. Now, I thought this was interesting because I remember talking to Steve McIntosh, who's been a guest a couple of times, and I asked him, what's the difference between the pagan tradition and the Abrahamic tradition? And he had a simple answer. He said, pagans are circular, and Jews, Muslims, and Christians, maybe Zoroasters, are linear. To them, everything has a beginning and a history, and then there's an end. To paganism, that's an alien concept. Everything is renewed. Everything goes into cycles. Everything comes about again and again. It's just the way of the universe. It's the way of the multiverse, if you would. So looking at this, I realized maybe the Sethians were never part of this Abrahamic dispensation. maybe this is always going to happen. The mind of God will, the original consciousness will know itself, spread out, create this grand drama, and then go. And as it says, as Adama says, and the secret book of John says, then it all just goes right back to the beginning of the story. The Valentinians had that attitude too. They said, yeah, when everything happens, goes down, yeah, you've got Sophia's mistake, you've got history, da da da, and then everything will be brought forth back to the great mother and father, silence and death. Then Satan and the Demiurge will help out. They'll be the guys pulling people up back to the source. Everybody has a role, and nothing is really good and bad. It just is. It's the eternal return. It's eternal recurrence, like the Stoics said, which Nietzsche borrow. Everything happens again and again and again. It's just the mind of God understanding itself. And as the Sethians would say from the secret book of John, the mind of God going cray-cray. And we are part of healing his madness. If you want the simple way, heal thyself. Heal your own madness, your own mind. And it reminds me, yeah, when Jung wanted to have his visionary experiences that gave the red book, he on purpose gave himself a psychotic break to understand what was within him. And I can relate because I've been going through that too. In my stress and challenges, I swear I had to break myself to see the real world and see what was under the hood. And my God, it's painful. Whew. It's beyond painful, but it has to be done. It's just part of the grand drama of the mind of God, and we are all the mind of God. Is Yaldabaoth part of it? I don't know. Again, it's like the blame game. Now let you decide and see where you need to lean into and what you have to work on. So now we'll get to the end. And yes, I hope you like that meme. Where do you want to start in finding out the Demiurge? Look in the mirror. We are the Demiurge's half brothers, and we are made partially in his image. Disconnected ego that doesn't know that there is wisdom, that there's experience, there is intuition, there is imagination, ends up like the Demiurge, ends up creating false realities. And I know when my ego is disconnected, I create a lot of false realities and a lot of deficient copies of something greater. So we are at the end. Perhaps I will do other traditions with the Demiurge. Again, there's a million ways to do this. I will get out. I will invite the guests. If everybody wants to jump in, I will let Vance 2 take questions from whoever he wants in the audience. Hey, I see Graham. Graham, why don't you jump in? Go get the link and jump in. I don't know why he's there in the chat. But anyway, what do you guys think? As I get a glass of water.
Excellent presentation. I think a lot of people will, get a little bit deeper into the Gnostic traditions from this. Great graphics too.
Enjoy. Think so? Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm in such a state. I don't know if I've made a difference, and I don't know if I should care. We all have a role. Sophia's rescue operation. I don't know if Gnosticism is making a difference. I don't. I'm in a complete Socrates mode, Vance. Maybe I'm wise. I don't know.
I wonder the same thing, But the thing is this: in each of our timelines, so to speak, we're developing, and as we emanate our quote unquote Gnostic wisdom, it's not just for the outside; it's for our insides too. Which is what the real reality is, right?
Yes, 100%. That's where it is. You got to get in to get out, as Peter Gabriel saying. And
yep,
we all say it, we all do it, but to do the real work, whew, I don't even. I'm grateful, but it is painful. God damn, it's painful.
Well, that's the Canoma for you, right?
Hey, Graham. Yeah. Hey, glad you could join us, Graham.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. That was a great presentation. I really like that quote from Adamus.
He's not from Battlestar Galactica. He's not the leader. It's the Adamus.
You mentioned there was a distinction between Satan and the Demiurge. some Gnostics saw them as one and the same. Am I correct there?
The Cathars replaced the Demiurge with Satan, but he had the same roles and whatever. But it's very weird. It's like they come here and Satan wants to create this world, and he does the same thing. He creates Adam, first human, and he can't move, and Satan's like, I need power. Then he double crosses his own angels and puts them there. It's very weird how the Cathars did, because again, they only had their mythology, right? Angels, Bible. So we're just angels that got double crossed by Satan, by the dim, which I guess, but the Valentinians used Satan, but again, he wasn't the Demiurge. He was just another cog in the heaven, another level in the wheel who had his purpose. And he was there to challenge us. Yeah, and he had the role of challenging us, but he was, again, the Valentinians, it's a beautiful universe according to the Valentinians. We just see wrong. We're in the fog, but everything's great.
And they had the Valentinians, of course, had a concept of the Demiurge.
But he was only ignorant. Yeah, he was just ignorant.
So they were sort of leaning towards the Platonic view of things then?
Pythagorean, Platonic, yes, they were a lot softer.
But you see some pretty awful things in the world, and to whom do they attribute that? For example, in the New Testament, it talks about casting out of demons, and even contemporary times there are exorcists who exorcise demons. And are we talking here about Archons or some other entities?
It's just they were for challenges, really. I mean, it's the old saying, hey, oh my God, I lost my job. It's terrible, but this led me to be a wiser person. So everything is there. Everything is happening for God to understand himself for a greater purpose, really love and kindness. And
I think that was a very powerful component of your message, because it does seem like our unhappy negative experiences do open us up to otherworldly communication or illumination. We wish it could be otherwise, but nevertheless, it does seem to be a necessary component. There's a beautiful verse in the Psalms, the darkness and the light are all the same to you. It's really, I think, a very profound statement.
It is. I mean, it's one way to do it. Again, all these traditions, Adrian, we're all trying to understand suffering and make heads of tail of it, or evil, and it's not easy.
No.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you hit on some of the points that I wrestle with here. And it's like, for me, the Demiurge inherently carries a sense of creator and ego with it. Mm-hmm. And so much of the traditions are trying to make sense of intent. Because it's like, is it the powerful giant that inadvertently steps on us? Or is that giant aiming at us as we try to dance out of its way? And to me, too often the traditions, they tried to go one side or the other, when really you got both forces in play. Sometimes the giant targets you, sometimes he doesn't know you're there, but you got to be aware of the giant. It's your job to not get stepped on. Okay?
No, definitely makes sense. So, but Sophia could have put her child in school or gotten, I don't know. To me, that's very sad. But then again, I know I've got things to look back at my childhood. My mom was very loving, but unfortunately she had OCD and she was also manic depressive. So I had to deal with her stuff, and I look back and I'm like, it's kind of like David Bowie. God, my mom never hugged me, and you think, well, and that for a child, that's huge. I mean, that David Bowie says, her mom never gave him a teddy bear, destroyed his psyche, sent him on so when I look at the story of Sophia, I go, oh, better look at my childhood. I want Sophia to hug her child.
When it comes to Sophia, Something came to me that makes sense, that kind of fits in with the Sethian story and so forth that you just related to us. Um, when the Yaldi got created, he must have been created in some sort of context or world, but the legends never say that. So my idea was that, the one that came to me at least, is that actually the Kanoma, our material world, actually is consistent of all the fragments of Sophia, with all the divine sparks, and as a raw material. And since she's wisdom without mind or logic, the only logic that could come through before the logos comes down is kind of a counterfeit logic, and that's kind of where the Demiurge got constructed. And so here we are, we have the Demiurge, and he thinks he's the only God. He couldn't create the world as a shadow of the pleroma consciously, because he doesn't know the pleroma. So basically what he did was he created it based on the fragments of the ideas of the pleroma that are existent in the fragments of Sophia. And then, you see, and then Sophia is being reconstructed by us. With the logo comes down, sheds the light on us, and we're reconstructing it. And that's kind of coincident with the Mother Earth type of thing. In other words, literally, the material world that we live in is Sophia.
Very good. I love it. Yeah. And I think that's why the story of Sophia is the most fascinating, because the Valentinian story, it's heartbreaking because, in this one, in the secret, it happens in the pleroma, and you're wondering, well, I guess the mind of God knows it's happening, right? Or he's going to create whatever. He knows. Adamus is like, well, too bad. But in the Valentinian, as soon as Sophia has that doubt, that rebellion, she can't be in the pleroma, because anything negative or deficient, she gets ejected. And some say she got split. Her darkness, like her demonic Sophia, Achamoth, gets thrown down into the pleroma, into the chaos, and she falls. And you wonder, John Lamb Lash has talked about it. Did she fall for billions of years? Because as she's screaming in pain, she's been cast out of the pleroma. Her negative emotions create the planets, the matter, time.
Time, right?
You imagine being in a sense of desperation and sorrow for billions of years, and you're just creating matter and time and everything. And finally, she collapses, and Irenaeus is like, her tears, she became the water, her tears became the water, her body became the earth. It was a horrible fall. And then the Demiurge kind of comes out as, kind of a benevolent being who's going to help out. So the Valentinian is maybe more tragic if you're Sophia, it's very sad.
It is. I could feel it.
And she, the whole time she's screaming, why? She's screaming at the pleroma, help. And she's got to fall, for those billions of years and create matter. Every time she has sorrow, she creates time, or hunger, desperation, she creates matter or planet. It's
and the loneliness, right?
Loneliness. Yeah. Imagine the state of lonely. You were in the perfect mind of God, your God's wisdom, and now you're completely alone, and your only companions are all your dark thoughts and emotion. We've all been there, right? We're so down that our only friends are bad thoughts.
So she's creating from her distress.
That's it. Yeah, we are her distress. We got to make her better.
Yeah, it's a good mission. Maybe Satan is actually Yaldi's adversary.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Oh, good crowd. Yeah, if you saw any questions, Vance, that you like.
Yeah, I've been looking. There's so much activity.
Yeah, I got to look at Patreon. I forgot about. Sorry about Patreon. No, it's a good crowd, but nobody's asking questions.
I thought I saw one. Yeah, you guys in the chat, if you got questions, put them in now so that I can see them. And I apologize if I missed any. among the melee, the chaos, the
Chaos, yeah. You're falling, Sophia.
I guess it's true when you observe nature that everything has a purpose. Even things that we regard as we could do without, like mosquitoes or something like that. It all fits into
purpose
some.
to bug us.
I think that's the first thing I'm going to ask about when we get to the other side is why do we have mosquitoes?
It's a system. It's the
Mhm.
dog eat dog system. Because
Right.
if you're creating without being emanating, all you're doing is rearranging parts, and you have a finite amount of energy, and so
Mhm.
you have to have things eat other things because you can't emanate more energy or emanate things out of nowhere.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why everything has to be built on everything else, and that's where creation destruction comes from. That's the way I see it, at least. And so it's random
And
too. That the predation. It's like it's all to survive, to keep
yeah,
the Canoma going, because the Demiurge, I think, knows that if the Canoma doesn't keep going and rolling along in its machinery, it will cease to exist.
yeah,
And the Demiurge wants to exist. He wants to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And rather than draw energy from source, from a divine source, it becomes like parasitic, trying to
Yeah,
feed off others, and that's permeating throughout the entire creation.
yeah.
Everything, life lives on life, and just can't get around it in
There you go.
this particular creation.
Very true.
Yeah, and it's
Yep.
ignorance. Yaldi doesn't care if we suffer. Because Yaldi is the principle, like Miguel said, he's like an AI. He's just a principle, a machinery, an algorithm that is trying to keep itself going, and
Mm.
it's unaware of suffering and it feeds on it, but it's unaware of what it's like to consciously suffer because he doesn't have the spark.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, one aspect of the Fall of Sophia that I always found interesting is the idea that she was acting out of defiance, out of thinking, her way of, she wanted to do creating, but not according to the regular plan. And it's, so she went off on her own, and it's sort of the problem of free will, rules in place, and the idea that when you violate those rules, it's the sort of the you break it, you bought it rule. Whatever happens, it's on your plate to clean up. And that aspect of it, I see with Sophia, and also so many other falls in different traditions. Tag.
Yeah. Yeah. It's part of a big, it's a trope that you see in so many mythologies. Again, Kybel, you see it there was a rebellious goddess with the Anunnaki. Obviously, Inanna went against the best interests of the other gods. Yeah, you see that. It's almost the hero's journey, right? We got to explore and make our own mistakes and be wise at the end when we get back to the village.
Yep, I tagged that one with the transition from the Sumerian Inanna to the Akkadian Ishtar. And that was a very definite change of personality there. Tag.
Mm-hmm. Yep, still part of the same trope, but yeah, or plan, if you would.
You want to take a question from the chat, Miguel?
Sure.
It's an interesting one. Do you think and believe there's a solar flash coming and it's going to activate our superpowers, turn us into superheroes? Activate us to turn for 2-strand carbon base to 13-strand. Kind of like a physical, almost like the rapture, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but again, our goal is what's inside our minds, what's inside our hearts. Superpowers isn't going to make us nicer to each other, stop any wars. You know what I mean?
Not without wisdom.
Yeah, if you watch the Boys, which started out so well and just devolved, but Homelander, the villain, is almost one of the perfect expressions of the Demiurge. Because there is childishness about him. There's almost a kernel of being abandoned and not loved that you can almost sense with Yaldabaoth, even though he's an AI. You know, there is the mother archetype is so powerful, even a machine would experience it. So,
oh, the movie
And he's-
Mother.
yeah,
That's a good. The movie Mother depicts that exactly.
yeah, yeah. It's based on the Kabbalah, which probably based on some Gnostic text.
Yeah, and the great I Am wishes you. He says he's empathetic to your suffering, and he appreciates you, and so forth. I won't put it up, but he did wish to give you that.
Thank you, appreciate it. Well, if there's no any other questions from people, we can wrap it up. Again, I will do Philip K. Dick, although I am itching to do the Valentinian view of the Demiurge, but I'll see. Maybe I'll throw a poll. But trust me, if things were better, I would love to do 1 or 2 presentations a month for you guys, because I want you to have this stuff. And I don't even know what I've scheduled for June episode out of it. But there will be stuff coming. There will be stuff. But again, this was a Black Iron Intercept presentation for the public, for everybody. Enjoy it. But for the other ones, please subscribe so you can get the full dope. Hey, how's it doing, Reverend? You get the full dope, and you can come back and ask questions and all that fun stuff if you would. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. Again, really appreciate your support. Really appreciate you guys being here, and gratitude is it's an Archon killer, as hard as it may seem. So
Yeah.
but for everybody else, I don't think I have no, please have a good rest of your weekend. Please keep writing your own gospel and living your own myth. Please know you are part of Sophia's rescue operation, and she needs you as much as we need her. So thank you for being here, and take care, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for
Take
the
care.
great presentation. Take care.
Very good.
Yep. Bye bye.
Bye-bye now.